when the days of
Yes,
Elijah.
yes, 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 yes. Welcome to another Science Audio Visual Tutor brought to you by Ronique Bernard. We hope you will enjoy this lesson this evening, this day. Now stay tuned for the rest of the lesson. Human and social biology. Our topic for today is circulatory system. Preview. The purpose of the circulatory system is to transport substances from part of the body to another. That is, to transport substances from one part of the body to another. The system also has protective function against diseases. Every cell in the body requires a supply of oxygen and food and removal of waste products. This supply is maintained by a constant flow of blood in the circulatory system. Some transport is also carried out by the lymphatic system. Okay, introduction. Now here we have a picture. Wow, I know it looks scary, but trust me, it's needed, don't you think so? Look at the inside. Can you imagine that's how the inside look? Yes, man, that's how the inside look. However, as you can see, inside my body is big. Yeah. What about yours? Can you see inside yours? Come on, stop looking. You can't see right now, can you? Remember something, that cells are the basic building blocks. Remember that in grade 9, grade 8, grade 7? Yes, cells are the basic building blocks. And they all need oxygen and food to carry out their activities. So we are saying that the cells all need oxygen and food to carry out their activities. So guess what? Let's now learn together how they are supplied. Parts of the circulatory system. Blood is one of the parts of the circulatory system. Blood vessels, they are form another part, or they are also a part of the circulatory system. So we have blood and we have blood vessels, which are both parts of the circulatory system. Can you tell me what next? What is missing? What do you think is missing? Ah, the heart. Yes, heart, right? The heart. Heart. So these three parts forms the basic system of the basic circulatory what? System. And each part have different what? Functions. So first up we are going to look at the parts of the blood. Good, blood. No. Now the blood has what? Red blood cells. Remember in the lesson that we had before on respiratory system, respiration, we learned about the red blood cell. You remember what red blood, what's the purpose or the function of the red blood cells? You remember that? Yes, the red blood cells carries what? Oxygen. And what is red blood cell made up of? Yes, hemoglobin. Ah, what else now? Yes, so the blood also has what? White blood cells. So it has red blood cells and it has what? White blood cells. And it also has what? Plasma. Do you know what plasma is? All right, we'll tell you in a few, right? Good. And it is made up of platelets. So the blood is made up of red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets. So these four parts forms the blood. Now, did you know this? That blood carries red blood cells, white blood cells, hormones, nutrients, and gases? Did you know that? All right. So, how many substances or how many things does the blood carries? Red blood cells is 1, white blood cells is what? 2, and what? Hormones is 3, nutrients 4, and 5, gases. So nutrients are like what? Glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and glycerols. Good. Vitamins and what? Water. And the gases are like carbon dioxide and oxygen. So these are the substances that the blood carries. Now, let's look at the red blood cells. Oh, I am also called erythrites. I I am made in the bone marrow. Vitamin B12 is used to make me. Good. See? I have no nuclei. So don't tell no lie. Because I have no nuclei. I transport oxygen around the body. I transport oxygen around the body. Now, biconcave shape. So the red blood cells, it has a what? Biconcave shape. It contains hemoglobin and an iron compound, which is an iron what? Compound, which combines with oxygen. So in other words, hemoglobin is formed from iron. So therefore you need to eat a lot of your what? Green leaf vegetables, is rich, which is rich in what? Iron. So therefore, eating a lot of green leaf vegetables will help to increase the amount of red blood cells simply because they are made from hemoglobin. White blood cells. I am called phagocyte. Not a fish, but phagocyte. I have a nucleus. I have a nucleus. I am lymphocyte and I produced antibodies. I am lymphocyte and I produced antibodies. White blood cells. Now remember, what's the name of this again? What's the name of this white blood cell? Yes, it's a phagocyte. And what's the name of this one? It's called a lymphocyte. Now they both have different what? Functions. Now this is called what? Or a bacteria. Now let's notice now. This is a bacteria. So this triangle shaped object will represent our bacteria. And let's look at what happens. All right. The bacteria was engulfed by the what? White blood cell. Now, what I want you to notice is that, remember that white blood cells are carried by the what? Blood. So all the times you'll find white blood cells in the what? Blood. So if a bacteria should ever escape into the bloodstream, then the white blood cell will detect the bacteria, and of course it goes directly after it, and then it engulfs it and what? Absorb it. So therefore that is a way of getting rid of the what? Bacteria in your blood, and that is a part of the body's immune or defense system. All right, good. Now, once again, these triangle shapes represents what again? Yes, bacteria. What's the name of this object here? It's a white blood cell, which is called what? Phagocyte. And this one is called what? Lymphocyte. And this star shape will be our antibodies. Now I want you to take your pencil and your paper, and then you're going to write what you observe. Ready? Let's go. All right. Now notice that the lymphocyte detected or identified bacteria in your bloodstream. And what it did is that it released antibodies. In other words, it produces antibodies, and whenever it detects bacteria in the bloodstream, what it does is that it releases these what? Antibodies. And you notice now that as the antibodies surrounds the bacteria, it basically what? Clumps up to what? Together. And this is what happens afterwards. Good. Where are they now? Exactly. So what happens afterwards is simply the phagocyte will move towards the clumped up bacteria and what? Engulf it. So both phagocyte and lymphocyte can work together as a part of the body's immune system and the body's what? Defense system. So once again, the lymphocyte will release the antibodies. Good. And then cause the bacteria to come close together, and then the phagocyte will in fact come towards the bacteria and engulf it, and then what? Get rid of it. Very good. Now, remember this one? Platelets. Now, these little blue circles here represents what? Platelets. And then these strings represents fibrin fibers. Now, this circle here is representing what? Red blood cells. Now, notice what happens here. Oh, oh, very good. So you see what happens? What happens is that the the fibrins or the fibrin fibers traps the what? Red blood cells. So platelets help to trap what? Red blood cells. Now, this is what happens. Now, these platelets are colorless, and they help in blood clotting at wounds. Wounds, in other words, when you get a what? Cut. So when you get a cut, the part of the blood that is active is the platelets, because they have to trap the what? Red blood cell, so that your cut or your wound can be what? Healed. Okay? Now, you see what happened here? This is our what? Plasma. Now I want you to, this cylinder shape object here is representing our blood vessels. Now it could be the capillary, it could be the artery. Good. Now if you notice, what is in the 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 capillary, in other words. Now the color of the shape is what? Pink. And so we are saying that the plasma itself is a fluid, right? And this fluid is carrying different, substances. And you remember this one? Good. The white blood cell, which is this one, is a what? Phagocyte. And then the red blood cells, and then you have, if you remember, it is also carrying platelets. This blue one there is platelets, and the green one could be glucose, and then the orange one could be amino acids. Good. So it carries all these substances in the what? In the plasma. So the plasma is a fluid in the blood. So the plasma makes up the fluid, the part that you see flowing. That, like when you get a cut, that is plasma what? Dripping out of your hand. Good. So part of the blood is basically plasma. Now, so the liquid part of the blood is plasma, and 90% of water makes up the plasma, and 10% is what? Solutes. So in other words now, water, the one of the characteristics of water is to what? Dissolve things. So therefore these substances are dissolved in the plasma because 90% of it is what? Water. And then you have other substances that are not dissolved, and they are called solutes. Basically, they are basically, well, solutes basically dissolve in the water, right? So correct me on that one. So 90% of the plasma is water, and these little things that you see moving, they are called solutes, and they make up 10% of the plasma. Now the plasma now, it transports what? Digested food, nitrogenous waste, and hormones, and it also carries heat around the body. So this is the function and characteristics of the plasma. Now, of course, we can't go without it. The CDP tried these questions. Number one, which part of the blood carries oxygen? I know you know the answer. Which part of the blood produces antibodies? Okay, if you want to know if your answers are correct, you may call 382-4929 and ask for Mr. Bernard, the presenter of this lesson. What are we going to look at today? Blood clotting. Can you tell me what this object is? Yes, it's a knife. Do you know what this is? It is your right hand, or it could be your left hand. So what is going to happen right here? My gosh. Ooh, somebody stabbed me in my hands. And what happened? You get a what? Cut. Now note, this blue thing here is called a what? Platelets. So platelets are always flowing along your what? Limbs and your arms, everywhere in your body. So here we have a cut. Now what happens now? So this platelets is there. This orange triangle is called the thromboplasm. So the platelets releases what we call the thromboplasm. Now what happens after that? You realize now. Now inside your blood you have different proteins, and this pink color triangle is called the prothrombin. It's a very hard word to pronounce. You better believe it. So prothrombin. Now that's a protein inside of your what? Your blood. And what happens now? Now note that this is the thromboplasm, and it's going to act on the prothrombin. And what happens after that? Notice the color change. Good. So this prothrombin was converted to thrombin. So the pro was actually what? Taken off. Alright, so what happens now? We have another protein called the fibrinogen. Good. Now, what happens to the fibrinogen? Now, you notice the thrombin is now reacting on the fibrinogen. Now, what happens? There's a color change from black to green. So, what is now released? It's converted to fibrin. So, the fibrinogen is now converted to fibrin. And then the fibrin releases what we call fibers, those purple looking string like shape. And the fibrin releases what we call fibers. Now, what are these fibers going to do now? Remember this? It's a red blood cell. And what happens? Oh, got caught. Got caught again. So the fibers or the fibers basically traps the what? Red blood cells. And as a result of that, the skin will what? Begin to heal. And then a cut or a wound is what? Covered. Now note, blood clotting is very important because one, if your skin is cut, the inside of your body will be exposed to germs, bacteria, etc. And that could cause serious damage to your body and seriously affect your life. So therefore, the skin is important, which protects the inside of your body. But whenever it is, fractured or broken, then blood clotting helps to the healing process so that it can regain coverage or covering of the body so that it can go back to the defense system of protecting you from being exposed to germs and bacteria. Blood vessels. Now, do you know how many blood vessels are there? The first one is capillaries. And these are what? Capillaries. Realize this? Good. And you see, plasma fluid is in the what? Capillaries. Good. And then we have veins. Now notice that these are what? Veins. We'll be looking at veins in the next part of the lesson. And then we have arteries. Good. Now take a good look at the arteries and the what? So on the veins and the arteries. And I want you to take your pencil and your paper and write a few sentences about what you observe about these two blood vessels. So we have three blood vessels. We have capillaries, veins, and artery. Okay, so here we're going to be looking at capillaries. And if you're looking at the capillary under a microscope, you will observe two things about it. One, that it has thin walls right here, thin walls, and it's basically one cell thick. Good. Now notice now that there is an advantage of this blood vessel having thin walls, in the sense that this is a vessel that carries the substances or the substances required by the cells are needed by the cells. So it carries it. So therefore, for the substance to leave the cell, leave the capillary, and to go into the cell as fast as possible, then the wall through which they pass through from the capillary to the cell must be very thin. So hence, that's the reason for it being thin, just to accommodate quick transfer from capillary to cell. All right. Now, of course, the function of the capillaries, they carry what? Oxygen, food, and other substances like they even carry carbon dioxide, which comes from the cells after respiration. So they carry oxygen, food, carbon dioxide, they carry hormones as well, and they carry other substances basically, right, to the cells. Now, the substances carried by the capillaries can pass through the capillary wall easily by the process of what? Diffusion. Now you can take your dictionaries and find out what the word diffusion means. And I want to say this to you. Even though I'm speaking to you, I am teaching you, you need to also have your dictionary which will give you meaning to each words used on screen or said by me. Alright? So diffusion really is a process where particles will diffuse from an area of plenty of the same particles to an area where there's none or little. Okay. Now, one of the other blood vessels is the what? Veins. So let's look at the characteristics of the veins. Now, the veins, it have what? Thin, thin walls. So this pink area right here is a wall, a muscular wall, which is what? Thin. And this color, it is very hollow, so it's basically a space, and it's a large lumen. So this area right here is basically a space through which the blood will what? Flow through. Just like your hose. If you were to look through the hose, it look green on the inside, but it's very hollow. So there's a space. So that space in which the water travels through is called the lumen. And in this case, this space that blood flows through is called the what? Lumen. And this area now, this yellow and lookish area is really called the what? Connective tissue. Now, what the veins do, they carry what? Blood to the heart, and of course, veins contains, so inside the veins there are valves which prevent the flow of blood in the wrong direction. So if the blood should go upwards, then the valve will close and then allow the blood to flow in one direction and in the right direction and not in the what? Wrong direction. So veins do have what? Valves. Now, note this, muscular movements in the body, like if you bend your foot or you straighten your legs, whatever it is, it will press on the veins and assist the flow of blood back to the heart. So muscular movements in the body helps the vein to carry back blood to the heart. Alright, so the other blood vessel, the artery. Now note, the walls right here are what? Thick. And if you compare it to the veins, the walls right here are thicker than the veins. So in the veins, the walls right here were thin, and for the arteries, the walls are what? Thick. Now there's a reason for that. When the blood is actually flowing through the lumen, which is smaller, of course, it is flowing at a very high pressure. Now I want you to listen carefully. Now, can you imagine when you squeeze your hose, squeeze the hose, right? You realize that the water comes out much more what? Faster, and it comes out more forceful. So it comes with a much greater what? Pressure. Because when you squeeze that, it increases the pressure of the flow of the water. Now, in this case, in terms of the artery, when the heart pumps the blood, and the blood is flowing through the artery, that blood is flowing with a high pressure. So you have to have thick walls then to restrain that pressure. If the walls were thin, then maybe the vessel would have been what? Damaged. So the thick walls is there to protect the artery and to maintain the pressure of the what? Blood. Is that clear? But the pressure of the blood passing through the vein itself is at a lower pressure than the pressure of the blood passing through the artery. Alright? So once again, the reason why the walls must be thick is to maintain the blood pressure or to restrain the blood pressure. Alright? And I want you to understand that the smaller the area or the space through which the blood must pass through, that that will help to increase what? Pressure. All right, so the smaller the area is the greater the pressure, the larger the area is the lesser the pressure. Now, arteries carry what? Blood away from the heart. Now, arteries also they branch into smaller vessels called the arterioles, and the arterioles branch again to form capillaries. So the most important thing here is the function of the artery, which they carry blood from the heart. Okay, now we're going to look at the heart, and I would like for you to take a close look at these two animations. All right, before I continue to narrate. All right, now if you notice, these arrows are indicating the flow of blood to and fro different places. Now, as you have seen before, that some red objects were flowing inside here, the heart. Good. And I want you to recognize that this pinkish looking area right here, it is actually called the cardiac muscle. Now, it is a muscle that basically helps in doing the what? Pumping of the heart, which push out the what? Blood. But note, this side right here, but before I go any further, you need to recognize that the heart itself has four chambers. You have the left and right atrium, or left and right article, auricule. You have different names, but most times textbooks call it atrium, left and right atrium. And then you have the left and you have the right what? Ventricle. Now, this side of the heart, the ventricle right, the left ventricle, has a much thicker muscle than the right ventricle right here. Now, there's a reason for that. Now, this side of the heart, the left side of the heart, is what pumps blood all the way around the what? Body. So therefore, the blood has to flow a longer distance coming from the left side of the heart. So hence the ventricle here, has to be thicker than the ventricle on this side. I mean the muscle of this ventricle right here has to be thicker than the muscle of this ventricle. Now this ventricle right here, which is the right ventricle, it basically pumps blood from the body to back to the lungs. Right? So therefore, the blood doesn't have far to go. And that's the reason why this side is thicker than this side. Now, as you can see, that when the blood is entering the heart, look what happens. The ventricle what? Increases. So therefore, they relax. But when the blood is leaving the heart, notice what happens. It contracts, means it's squeezing, and then squeeze the blood what? Out. So really, when the muscle relaxes, it will receive blood, and when the muscle contracts, it will what? Release the blood. All right? Good. So that is basically an introduction to the heart. Okay? All right. Now we're going to look in more details now of the flow of blood through the heart. Now, this object right here is representing blood. And I want you now to pay close attention as to what happens. So it is called oxygenated blood. Why? Because the blood contains oxygen. And of course, you know it is coming from the what? Lungs. All right. So notice what happens now. The oxygenated blood enters what we call the what? Well, before we do that, it passes through the pulmonary vein, good, coming from the lungs, and it enters The first chamber of the heart is called the left areoary, which is auricle, left auricle. Good. So oxygenated blood enters the left auricle by the pulmonary what? Vein. So the function of this part of the heart is to receive blood. Now right here, this black thing right here, what do you think it is called? All right, it is called a what? Bicuspid valve. Why? Because bi means what? Two. So therefore it has what? Two valves. Now what happens now? Good. So you realize that the blood basically what? Passes, it enters now what we call the ventricle. And it passes through the what? Bicuspid valve. Now the truth is that all the other objects, which is blood still, should all pass through. But we didn't allow it to pass through this time. For no reason at all, right? Good. Now, what you notice happens, the valves what? Closes up. Why it closes up? It closes up to prevent a backflow of what? The blood. So it prevents the blood from going what? Backwards. So therefore, it allows the blood to move in one direction. So the flow of blood basically moves in what? One direction. Now, as you notice right here, that the left ventricle right here is going to basically pump the what? Blood out. So look at our little animation right here to know what is happening right here. Now, so therefore now this chamber is called the left ventricle. And the function of the ventricles is to pump blood outside of the heart. Now, let's see what happens. See the blood leaving? Good. Now the valve right here is basically closed at the moment. So, but it's now opened to receive the what? Blood. Now the name of that valve is a semilunar valve. And once again, look to see what happens. Very good. So the ventricle will pump or push the blood out of the heart. Good. And it leaves through a vessel called the what? Aorta. So when the left ventricle pushes the blood out of the heart, it enters the rest of the body through a vessel called aorta. So this is called the what? Aorta. Which is, if you look at this diagram right here, these are basically the what? Aorta. And this section here is called the pulmonary vein. All right. So the blood disappears really, it's really gone to other parts of the what? Body. All right. Good. What next? Now, after the blood vessels supply the cells with blood and the necessary, for example, carbon dioxide, oxygen will leave the capillaries and go into the what? Cells. And there the blood is continues to flow, but it flows without oxygen, leaving the body and now returning to the what? Heart. So this blue object is representing deoxygenated what? Blood. So which is blood without oxygen. Now it is going to enter the right auricle. Good? Or right atrium for some books. Notice it enters. So once again, the function of these two top chambers of the heart is to receive blood, which is the left auricle and the right auricle. Now it enters the right auricle through a tube called the vena cava. Now you have blood leaving the body and re-entering the heart through the vena cava, and you have blood leaving the head and upper arms and enter on this chamber by what we call the superior vena cava as well. Now here we have another vein that is closed. The name of, good, so we have the right auricle, good. And then now, the name of this valve right here is called the tricuspid valve. Why is it called the tricuspid valve? Because it has what? Three valves. All right. Now, at this moment, it is going to open to release the what? Blood, which the ventricle now will receive the blood at this time. Notice what happens. Good. It opens to receive the blood. Now it's going to close again to prevent the backflow of what? Blood. So you notice now the blood is flowing in what? One direction. But my question to you, how many times has the blood entered the heart before returning to the lungs? Good, twice. And that is why it's called a double circulatory system. So it is called a double circulatory system simply because the blood enters the heart twice before returning to the what? Lungs. So of course, the right ventricle now pumps the blood out